So my name is Adriana Harmeyer. I'm the archivist for University History in the Purdue University Archives and Special Collections. And today I'm going to walk you through some of the digital resources that we have available for research, either personal interest, family history, or your academic research, thesis, dissertation work, any subject that relates to collections that we have in the Purdue University Archives. I think we'll find some good resources and searching tips for you today with this demonstration. So throughout the video, we'll have everybody stay muted, but you can submit questions in the chat, and we'll have time at the end of the session to go over questions as well. So I'm going to spend the bulk of the session just walking through some of these resources, sharing highlights from our collections, and offering some tips about how to make the most of these things that are available to you. So I'm going to share my screen now. We're going to be looking at the Purdue University Archives and Special Collections website, which you should be seeing now on your screens. And this is really the landing page, the starting point for any research that is going to use the collections that we have here at Purdue University. And even if you aren't able to do physical research in the collections, there are a lot of reasons, especially right now, that you might not be able to access physical materials. We do have a lot of digital resources that will make this easier and should help to still create a fulfilling research experience. So we've digitized several collections that we have here with an eye out for trying to be broadly relevant, but also deep in content so that these things will be of value to researchers. We're going to spend the bulk of the time today looking at our digitized collections that are in e-archives, but we will also be looking at a couple of other resources that will be helpful as well, that are all available here on our archives website. By the end of this session, I hope everyone feels comfortable and confident in using these resources, that you have a good idea of the kinds of materials available to you and how to find those. So to get started, I'm on this archives homepage, and this links to a lot of information about what we have here. This is a very helpful website in general, but specifically on the left side of the screen, there's a section called Collections. And I'm going to click on eArchives Digital Collections. It's the second link here on the left. Okay, and you can see here at the top of the screen, we have 90 collections that are available here. So as I said, a lot of resources, some really great content across a wide variety of topics. I'm going to quickly go through some of the highlights of these collections that we have, look at how to navigate this website, and then we'll talk more about searching and how to use this for more specific information needs as well. So you can see here at the very top of the page, starting with A, two of our most popular collections, both relating to Amelia Earhart. We have the Amelia Earhart at Purdue collection, as well as the Amelia Earhart papers, and that is the material that she actually collected that documents her career. I'm going to click on the Amelia Earhart at Purdue collection so you can see what this looks like. It just brings up all the materials that we have. Again, at the top we get a number. There are 440 items in this Amelia Earhart at Purdue collection. And you can browse through these, you can narrow them by different filters on the side of the screen, and you can change the way it sorts. So I'm going to sort this list by title, ascending. And this is helpful to me here because Amelia starts with an A, so a lot of the materials that are directly, including Amelia Earhart, come up here to the top of the page. And you can see many of these are photographs. So I'm going to click on a photograph to see what that looks like. This is Amelia Earhart, her husband George Palmer Putnam, with 3 men at the Purdue University Airport. So we have this photo here, which is interesting on its own. As we know a little bit about her time at Purdue, we get a little bit more context. And below the picture is something I really want to point out here. We get descriptive information. So when we put materials online, we want you as a researcher to know everything we know about this photo. So we have our title, but we've also got a description, and it actually tells us who these people are in this photograph, where they are, the date of the photo. We have a list of keywords. We know what type of item this is. All the technical information about this being scanned. So we really do try to give you the full context of these materials, basically everything you would know if you would come into the archives and had physically had this photo put in front of you, things like what box it came from. All that information is here online as well. So you can see that here on this photo page. We have thousands of photos here in the e-archives. This is just one example. So I'm going to go back now to the collections list as a whole. I wish I had time to go through every single collection individually because they're very interesting. But I'm just going to scroll down the page. You can see some of these titles that come up on the screen and think about how they might be relevant to you. So we have materials from the Black Cultural Center. We have the Purdue Board of Trustees minutes. That's dating back to 1869. So the entire history of the university, their Board of Trustees minutes, they're an excellent resource if you're doing any kind of research that relates to the history of the university. We have materials from individual people. And then we have one of what I think is one of the best resources available online, the Debris Yearbook. So I'm going to click on this. This was an annual yearbook published from 1889 to 2008. And it was published by the senior class. And you can immediately see as this pulls up on the screen from these thumbnail images of the covers, everyone looks very different from the others because each senior class wanted to put its own creative stamp on this yearbook as it was being published, as they were distributing it. And this includes photos and information about so many people that attended the university. And I'm just scrolling quickly down because I'm going to a specific issue here that I want to show you in 1954. So again, it's a similar interface that you saw with the Amelia Earhart photo. We have the image at the top of the page and the additional information down below it. It's not a lot of additional information here. The 1954 yearbook kind of speaks for itself here. But we start with the cover page, and we can see on the right side of the screen, every page individually is listed here on the side, so we can flip through the pages. And down below, these expanders, again, give us all the pages. And there are a lot of pages, so it might be interesting to flip through yearbooks if you were at Purdue as a student and you want to relive some of those times. But often we'll be searching for a specific person or a specific topic. So we also have the option to search within an item. So not just searching the entirety of e-archives, but once we're in a specific item, we can do a keyword search because all of these items are text searchable. So I'm going to look for the word Armstrong in this yearbook. And you can see it takes me directly to the page that has that result. And right here at the top, we have Neil Armstrong on this page. It's a little bit difficult to read at this point. So there's a really handy little trick here. In this corner, there's a blue box that I'm going to click on, and that gives us the expanded view of this page. So we cut away the description, we cut away the page listing, and then we can zoom in through the controls at the top of the page. We can drag the page around. So this is a really nice feature if you're looking maybe at group photos and you're trying to pinpoint specific people or to find specific pages. So right there we have Neil Armstrong, a recognizable face to all of us, I think. And then at the top right side, we could flip through the pages if we wanted to go page to page, or we can close out of this zoomed in view and go back. So we can see here when I did the search for Armstrong that I got 15 results throughout this yearbook. I'm not going to flip through all of them, but I'm just going to scroll down to one more just to see again how this keyword searching works. I have this little red bar that shows up next to the page number, so I know that that had a match. And since I'm on the page for the Arrow Club, it seems like I had a good match. But what I want to show you specifically, you don't necessarily have to look through this image and try to find the word that matches what you searched for. Down below the image, there's a transcription of this page. And this is very helpful if you get a very text-heavy book or document you're working through and looking for particular words. The search function will actually highlight what you're looking for. So I can see in this case, Armstrong is in the front row of the Aero Club picture at the top of the page. And if I go up top again, I can see that written there now and find him in that picture. So there's a lot of capabilities here within the debris to help us pinpoint in on exactly what we're looking for. We've had so many thousands of alumni over the years that we have records of many of them in these pages, whether in their official senior portraits or in these club photos, group photos, residence hall photos, that this is a great resource in learning more about people's lives as a student. So I'm going to go back. That's our quick introduction to the yearbook. Back to the search, to the list of collections that we have, to continue that overview of what we're looking at here. There are some engineering reports, several collections of agriculture extension reports. So this is an excellent resource that I know gets used extensively by students and researchers who are looking into agriculture related topics. Okay, and then you might notice this one here with a big shiny disc on it, the Frank and Lillian Gilbreth collection. I'm going to click on this one briefly just so you can see that it's not just documents or photographs or publications that we have in eArchives. There's also multimedia, whether it's audio or video. In this case, these are some videos from the papers of Frank and Lillian Gilbreth, who were pioneers in the field of industrial management. And it's a really simple player. I click on this, my video player pops up, I hit play, and there it starts going. You may hear the static in the background. I'm not going to let it play for very long, but it's a pretty straightforward system to use. We don't want to make it difficult to access these materials that are in eArchives. And just like with everything else, we have descriptive information down below. So we have a summary. We know who's involved in presenting this. We have the date. We have the time period. So if you wanted to know just quickly how long is this video, do I have time to watch this right now to do my studies, then we have that all there. As I said before, we're trying to get this information out there so you have all the information you need to know if this is going to be a relevant resource for you. Okay. So we've got a few collections related to Indiana history. So not just Purdue materials here, Indiana history is represented. We have a small collection of medieval manuscripts that are online. We have our psychoactive substances research collections, several collections of Purdue historical photographs, Purdue history in print. So I'm just going to click on this one briefly so you just get to see this list of results. These are some early publications that are about Purdue. This is the full book, text searchable, The Earliest History of the University, 50 Years of Progress, early book about the trustees. We have the 75th anniversary booklet about Purdue. And then we have publications about the engineering department or about the bands or about aerospace engineering. And again, I'll just say these are excellent resources when you're looking into those topics or if you're looking for people who were involved in those fields. And I think that's going to come up again a little bit later in this session. So we were down here. We're about to click through to our final page of collections that we'll be scrolling past. And I hope some of these things are catching your attention. As I said, I don't have the time right now to click through everything, but if you want to learn more or talk about any of these collections, please let us know. So I'm just going to scroll down. We've got a lot of photograph albums and scrapbooks in here that give us a really great look at student life at different times in Purdue history. And then the last collection I want to specifically point out here is the course catalogs. So there's a lot of value in these Purdue University course catalogs. These are the record of what was happening at the university in a particular year. It includes, in the earliest years, a list of the names of all the students who are enrolled at the university and what they're studying. It includes a list of all the programs that are being offered and the degree requirements. And into the 20th century, it includes the course listings, as you might expect from something called course catalogs, which means that if you attended Purdue and want to find out what was that class I took my sophomore year, these sources are here to tell you that. And just like the debris, you can click on these, you can click through the pages on the side, and you can do a keyword search within them specifically. So if you were looking specifically for classes on horticulture during this particular year at the university, I got 57 keyword results. So I can find out everything I need to know about the horticulture department and who was on the faculty and what classes were they teaching. And there's one extra little feature here that I really like. Under the search bar, I can show all, and this shows me all the pages and gives me that little red sidebar, or I can filter my results and it'll narrow me down just to the pages that match my search. And this is a really helpful feature to me. And I'm just going to click on one of these pages just so we can see. It looks like a course catalog. It probably is pretty familiar to many of us who have had to use these ourselves. This is the introduction about the horticulture department specifically. It lists the names of the professors, instructors, and graduate assistants. So sometimes that becomes an issue when people are researching the history, that they know there was an instructor with a particular name, but maybe it was a graduate assistant, not a faculty member, and then it was harder to find them in the faculty listings. Well, all that information is here, and you can see it actually tells us who was the instructor for a particular class. So a lot of really helpful information here about Purdue history. So that's kind of a quick overview of the collections that we have. But really, most of the time, if you're looking into digital collections, you might be just browsing around for something interesting, but more often you're going to be searching for a specific topic, something directly relevant to the research you are doing. And in that case, you'll do a search across all of the collections. So I'm going to do a keyword search here, imagining I'm looking for information about a particular person. So I'm going to search for the name Redenbacher, and I'm sure we all know what these results are going to look like. I got 47 matches on just the name Redenbacher. And we can see here there are photographs from the Purdue University Alumni Collection. So the search results page actually tells me what collection these results are from, which I think is really helpful. And it shows how this variety of information really works together to support research. So we've got photographs of Orville Redenbacher here. We've got some matches from the Debris yearbook. And we've got a match from the Board of Trustees minutes. Now, I find this interesting because as far as I know, Orville Redenbacher graduated from Purdue in 1928. So I'm going to click on this Board of Trustees minutes in 1940 and see what's here. And what I'm seeing is that O.C. Redenbacher was working as the county extension agent in Vigo County, Indiana. This is a record of his resignation from the position, but now I know that he worked as a county extension agent for a time in the late 1930s. So that's an additional piece of information. If I were doing biographical research on this person, it gives me another trail to follow because he was mentioned here by name and because we have this text searchable document online. If I go back to my search results, I see a Purdue history and print match. So Hail Purdue, a book about the Purdue bands. Let's click on that. We've got his name highlighted again. Orville Redenbacher joined the band as a freshman at Purdue in 1924. And we have a quote from him about playing in the band under director Spots Emmerich. So just with a couple of resources, doing this keyword specific search for one person, we're fleshing out more of our understanding of him, giving us more resources to consider, more paths to consider if we're investigating a particular person. I've got some alumni directories, more extension documents. And what I really want to point out here is that Orville Redenbacher graduated in 1928. And the 1928 yearbook is his senior yearbook. it was not at the top of our search results list. So we do try to have search results ranked by relevance, but if the keyword is there, you get a lot of good matches. You might have to go further down the page. So I guess my point here is do some digging. If you're looking for someone, go through all the results and see what exactly it is you're looking at. So I'm going to click here on this 1928 debris, and this looks much like the Neil Armstrong debris layout-wise, but the page itself looks very different because the design changed from year to year. And here we have O.C. Redenbacher. And again, I'm going to expand the page so I can actually view it a little bit better, get a clearer image. And there he is. So here's his picture, Orville Redenbacher's senior yearbook, and this information about him. So now we know all the clubs he was in, what he was doing as a student. And I do want to point out, I picked Orville Redenbacher to do this example because he is a familiar name. He's got an unusual name, so I know if I get a match, there's a good chance that he's the right one. But we can see all these other people on this page. Albert Rabe, Ralph Rector, Anthony Ricetta. I could have searched for any of those people and gotten similar results. Most of these students appear in different records at different times for different reasons. So other students in the band may have been mentioned in the band's book. They might have come up in the Board of Trustees minutes because they graduated, because they got a job at the university afterward. So these searches apply to everybody. These sources are about everybody who had a connection to the university, not just necessarily the most notable names. So that's our quick overview of eArchives. If you have questions about this, please put them in the chat. I'm going to go through a couple of other resources and then we'll have time to go over questions at the end of the session. Okay, so I'm just going to close out of eArchives here. I'm going to go back to the archives homepage where we started. And what I want to take a look at now is the Purdue Campus Facilities and Buildings Historic Database. So there is this big link in the middle of our homepage about this database. And this has records truly of every structure that ever existed on Purdue's campus. It's interesting for a lot of different reasons. You can search for buildings or you can search for keywords. If you searched for biology, you'd get results for every building that ever had a biology department in it. But what I specifically want to take a look at today is this interactive map. So this map shows us every building that ever existed on Purdue's campus from 1874, when the first class was held, until 2020. And you can see here, it is a lot of buildings. And we've had things built and torn down and new buildings constructed in the same spot. So we're looking at a lot here. But what we can do with these sliders at the bottom is narrow it down. So if I'm researching a particular professor who was here in the 1920s, I can narrow my search down to the 1920s and just see what campus looked like then. If I'm researching my grandfather who attended the university, I can use this feature to get a better sense of what it was like then and help to put our minds into that space. And what I can do from here is actually click on each building. So I'm going to click on this little shape here. This is Eliza Fowler Hall. And immediately I have this information available here of the dates the building existed, a description of the building. And I'm actually going to go down and click more information. So I get a full description of Eliza Fowler Hall. I can see photographs of it. This was a beautiful building where they put on productions. This is what the hall, the theater of it looked like at the time. So this is a bit more specialized of a resource because it is focused on the buildings, but it's some really helpful context about Purdue history, about the campus that we see today and how it evolved over time. But it also has academic importance as well. This is GIS based. We've integrated a lot of practical information about construction of buildings, costs associated with it, contractors and architects that were used, how long these things took to build. So we have this whole data set now related to building construction that has applications in a variety of fields, from construction and engineering, management, to financial considerations, to Purdue history. So this is also just a lot of fun to play with. I recommend looking at that slider tool and seeing what you find, what jumps out to you there. So the last source I want to take a closer look at today is back to our archives homepage. What we have seen so far, especially in eArchives, are digitized collection materials that are available online for you to view whenever and wherever you want to. That is just a very small percentage of the collections total that are available in the Purdue University Archives and Special Collections. So even if you can't see online immediately most of our collections, you can still learn more about them. So I'm going to click now. Back here on the left side of the screen, above the eArchives link, is a button called Search Collections. And this takes us to our collections database. And this is where we have a record of every collection that we have in the Purdue University Archives. You can do searches for specific collections if you know of a specific collection. You can search for a keyword or a person or an organization and just see what comes up. So I'm going to do a search now for the Reamer Club, a longstanding campus organization, and see what results I get. I got 43 matches. My very top result is an organization called Purdue Reamer Club. Below that, I have the Purdue University Reamer Club records. So I'm going to click on this organization. And this is just an information page about the organization of the Purdue Reamer Club. There's a historical note. There's a citation. So this database is not just giving you links to other materials. There's information here to aid your research in its own right. This can be a starting point for biographical or historical research on Purdue-related subjects. And we cite the sources that we used, so then you could follow up on that yourself or do further research into those areas. And then down below, I have two collections that are related to the Reamer Club. So one is a collection of Reamer artifacts, and one is the Purdue Reamer Club records. So I'm going to click on this now. This is our record for the Purdue University Reamer Club records. These were transferred or donated to us from the Reamer Club. But as we'll see, that information appears on this page. So much like I was saying on the description page in eArchives, how we try to give you all the information we have about a material, this page in our database that we call a finding aid, we try to give you all the information that we have about an archival collection. So you can make the most informed decisions for your research. You can determine if this is going to be relevant to you before you made a research visit or before you followed up with us to ask additional questions about these materials. So we can see on this page at the very top, we have a scope and contents note that gives us an overview of the kinds of materials that exist in these Reamer Club records. We have a date range that these materials cover, and this one is a pretty significant range of period of time. We know the creator is the Reamer Club. And then we know if it's open for research. We know where the copyright stands. So these are some things you might need to know if you had plans to publish your research or had any issues related to that. And then we also have historical information. So this is going to be very similar to what was on the organization page, but now it's right here in the middle of everything else to give us context for these records that we're looking at. We know the extent of the collection, which just is how big is it? It's 3.65 cubic feet. We can see that's about 5 boxes. If you were to do research, there's a big difference between finding 1 box and 200 boxes. So this extent helps you make informed decisions about your research and what you might need to ask for and how to plan any kind of research you're planning to do in a collection. And then I'm going to hit expand all to view the rest of this information. So again, we're telling you everything. When did this come to the archives? How did it come to the archives? Who transferred this to us? We keep record of all that information. And then we note anything that was done in the archives that might change the materials themselves. So in this case, processing information, we note that we place them in acid-free folders and boxes, which is a very standard step that we take in the archives. And then we have related subjects and related names. And these are all links so that you can find additional information on any of these subjects. And we'll come back to those in a moment. And then at the bottom, we have just some administrative information that we keep track of when these records were updated. And then the last part of this page I want to look at is over here on the right side. There's an expander here. And this shows us the organization of this collection. So in the Reamer Club records, we have artifacts, banquet programs, and Purdue history materials. But if I click this expander, I see within artifacts, we have paddles, we have Reamers, we have Boilermaker special artifacts, 75th anniversary, and Reamer Club materials from Jerry Ross. So we know from other parts of the page what these materials have to do with the collection, how they all relate to each other. And we know that these are materials that are available and we could ask about them. So I'm gonna just take a quick look again at these links down below and see under subjects, we list sheet music. So I know there's sheet music in this collection. If I click on that term, I get a quick definition of what sheet music is, and then other collections that also have sheet music in them. So this is a really helpful way to kind of go down the rabbit hole with your research, to use these linked terms to go from one record to another and find what might be relevant to you and relevant to your research. And I'll just click on another one just to show another example. This is a smaller collection. It doesn't even have that organizer on the right side, but it is a collection of 8 volumes of sheet music from the Purdue Choral Society. And we've got all those same information fields that we had on the other record. So I recommend with this database searching by a keyword, by a particular subject that you're researching, that you're interested in, see what you find, and then see how it relates to other materials. Follow those links and see where that leads you. Now, since these materials are not digitized, they're physical collections that we have in the archives, and physical access is limited right now. Another digital resource that we have available is email. So if you want to know more about an archival collection, whether you have specific questions about the materials in the collection, or you'd like to see maybe request a copy of a couple of items that you found described that sound interesting to you, you can contact us and we'll work with you to help you find those materials. So I'm going to go back now to our website homepage. Again, this is part of the Purdue Libraries website, the Purdue University Archives and Special Collections page. You can link to the campus facilities and buildings historic database from this graphic in the middle of the page. And then on the left side of the screen, we have links to search our collections, our entirety of collections, or to view the eArchives digital collections specifically. And then at the bottom of the page, we have our contact information here. So we have our mission statement. You can learn a little bit more about us. You can view our social media through these links available under the mission statement. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and we have an archives blog that is available through that link there. And then over on the right side of the screen, we have our email address, archives@purdue.edu. And we really do want your questions. We want to be able to help you as best we can, especially considering any limitations that you might have right now regarding physical and digital access of materials. So I'm going to leave this up on the screen right now. But do we have any questions? Whether about using these interfaces, about how to search for materials, or any more specific questions you might have, anything that this has brought to mind for you. Okay, well, please share your questions in the chat if you think of anything. Again, I'll just say that this website is kind of our central access point for all of these resources that we have. And the best way to find things is just to click, see what you find. All right, let's see what we've got in the chat. Okay, cost of construction in the buildings database. That's a great question. We put in the cost when it was built, but also have a converter to show what that is in today's dollars. So I'll pull up a page to show that. And the Vonnegut who constructed Eliza Fowler Hall was Kurt Vonnegut's grandfather. Thank you. That is really interesting. I didn't know that. That's one of those little tidbits that helps make Purdue history a little bit more exciting and more relatable to people. So any questions that you have or comments, please continue to put those in the chat. So I'm going to show you just what searching this database looks like. I'll do a search for Eliza Fowler, and you get a search results page here. And much like other databases, you can filter your results if you're doing a very specific kind of search. So we can see here under the construction information, right there we've got our architect, Vonnegut and Bond, and then the cost of construction. So in 1902, the building cost $70,000, but in today's dollars, that's 1.8 million. So that's an interesting detail we can use to compare things over time, to look at the funds that were going into these types of projects and how they were managed. So yeah, I like that today's dollars feature. That helps some with the analysis and the potential research that can be drawn from this database. I also really like that there are pictures here. We can look at how things were. This building was demolished in 1954. It's now the footprint of Stewart Center over Eliza Fowler Hall, but we can see what it looked like at the time. Okay, we have a new question. How are we keeping the database up to date on new construction? Are these being added in? Yes, there is a regular review process and the database is being kept up to date. And it is regularly having GIS information added in as that is made available. And it does include recent construction projects. There might be a bit of a delay. There might be several months as this information is becoming available. But we can see, like, I'm going to limit this look to just 2020 here. So we probably have a few months delay as we have to get things into the system, but we do intend to keep it up to date. This was not just made one time and then left alone as a resource. It is a living resource that will continue to show us what campus looks like and to collect this information about construction. So you can see that's basically what campus looks like today, with a few exceptions for current construction projects. Did we have any questions about using eArchives? It's got a lot of information in there, but the functionality, the usability of it is pretty consistent across collections and across types of materials. The page viewers really help to focus in on different sources, and the transcriptions make it all so easily searchable to get you to where you need to be. It's a much quicker, straightforward process as opposed to going through those materials physically. Okay, what are some of your favorite digital collections in eArchives and why? That is an excellent question. And I think my answer changes based on whether I am browsing for my own interest or if I am trying to find information to answer some specific research questions. I think the most interesting collections we have are probably the Amelia Earhart collections. She was a world famous pilot and teacher and counselor and fashion designer and did so many things, and those are all represented in her collection in eArchives. We can see all of those things there. As far as usefulness for research, I think the Board of Trustees minutes and the debris yearbook are some of the strongest resources we have when it comes to Purdue history. Yeah, the trustees, in the earliest years, the trustees would actually list the name of every graduate every June. So there's a lot of research potential there in finding names of people, which isn't something I necessarily expected. Thinking Board of Trustees, you think high-level administrative work, but they really got involved in the details of what was happening at the university. But as far as my personal favorite collections, I'm actually going to a particular section near the end here where we've digitized some scrapbooks and photo albums. And I personally enjoy these for a unique perspective on campus, seeing what life was like at a particular time period, and looking at what students chose themselves to keep in their personal memory books. So this is a photo album that was kept by a young woman in the early 1900s. And she kept just a meticulous layout. She clearly put a lot of time and effort into her scrapbook. And this is the very first page in her scrapbook, is a photo of a room full of female students. It's labeled the coeducational element. So for me personally, I find these fascinating because we get a little bit of personality coming through. It's not just the photos themselves, which are interesting, but the way they were kept and contextualized by their owners. Okay, we've got a question about citations. Yes, so part of having this information beneath the photos in eArchives is that we have all the information you would need for citations. So in the case of this photo album, this is the Loretta Mae Wallace photo album. This is the name of the collection she is from. So you have that information here. And there is a preferred citation down here at the bottom. So we have our identifier, collection title, and the archives and libraries that it's from. So we would use that same citation format for any media materials as well. So for example, the video that I clicked on from the Gilbreth collection, you would have the title of the video and then the preferred citation for the collection, the number, the collection title, Archives and Special Collections, Purdue University Libraries. So we use that same format for any materials that are here in the collection. And the descriptions should give you all those pieces that you would need for a full academic citation. Okay, is there a particular collection that has the most growth? That's a great question. So in many cases, when we put a collection online, it is the complete collection. It's not necessarily a growing collection. As with Amelia Earhart, we tried to put the entire collection online. But ongoing university records, like the Board of Trustees minutes or the faculty and Senate minutes, those we continue to get the minutes when there's a new meeting, and we add those online. So we do maintain those collections that continue to generate new content. And some of them we might have, for some reason, only put up part of the collection and still have more to add. But in general, once we get a collection into eArchives, it's typically a complete collection on its own. That's the case with most of the photograph collections as well. But I'll just take a quick look. And there's a delay period, of course, in adding these things to eArchives. It might take a few months or a few years, depending on what we're looking at and what that process is like. But I'm just going to take a quick look here just to show that these Board of Trustees minutes online go up to the current decade. So this is a resource that continues to grow, that we continue to add to it, and we'll be getting more added here in the near future as well. So it's not just historical things necessarily that are in eArchives. It covers a wide time period and continues to grow. Yeah, and like I said earlier, there are so many collections here. There are big collections and small collections, and some of them are very specialized, and some of them have a really broad appeal as well that I encourage everybody to go through and see what jumps out to you, what catches your interest, or do a keyword search. If you know somebody who attended Purdue, see if you can find them in a yearbook or in a trustees minutes. Do we have any other questions? Does anyone know why it's called the debris? That is a fantastic question. It involves John T. McCutcheon. My understanding is that there was just a bit of a misunderstanding of what that word meant. It was used to mean a collection of assorted things. So like the snippets of everyday life on campus. Yeah, it's a unique title among college yearbooks. And that's one interesting thing about our debris as well, is some of our early alumni, including John T. McCutcheon, who went on to be a renowned cartoonist, and Bruce Rogers, who was a type designer, book designer, George Ade, the author. They were all there around the time that the yearbook was starting, and also the same time that the Exponent newspaper was starting. So we have a really impressive pedigree of Purdue alumni who were involved in those books. Yeah, but they could have done better when choosing the title of the yearbook to not mean trash. It's a great point, Francis. Yeah, McCutcheon did love a good joke. The lasting impact that early generation of students made is incredibly impressive. Through those publications that they worked on, through their work, and even today with buildings that continue to carry their names on campus. Okay, well, we have a couple more minutes, but if there are no more questions, then we can wind down. So last call, if you have any other questions. You can also email us, as I said, archives@purdue.edu. If you have any specific questions, if you have any research you're working on and want to talk more about sources available to you, or figuring out the best kind of research path you can use through these collections, we are very happy to help you with anything involving this research or using our collections here. All right. Well, thank you everybody for attending this session today. I hope that you'll be investigating some of these resources on your own soon. Thank you.